Cozy games to unwind with after a long day of work have seen a dramatic increase in demand. Sometimes it's hard to come home from work or school and just want to start another game. When I start something like a JRPG especially, I want to be in a position where I can be there for a few hours to try and really get into it. Putting only like 45 minutes into a JRPG or any game that's long doesn't really give you enough time to get a good understanding and grasp of the game. Oftentimes there's a really long setup for JRPGs because much needs to be covered in these mostly fantasy type realities, which need a bit of exposition to give their player an understanding of how the world functions, who the characters are, and the unique details of the combat. This is a lot to take in after a full productive day of work. Every day you have to make food, commute to work, and take care of whatever chores need to be done. You don't have the time to dump into JRPGs all the time, and a lot of the time you don't even want to commit to something like that with what little time you have left to yourself. This isn't to say that video games are a chore or anything like that, just that there's a lot to take in and a lot to do, and I don't always want to focus when I'm so physically and mentally exhausted from the day. Oftentimes I just want to sit down and relax, play something casual and relaxing like Stardew Valley and have a YouTube video on my other monitor. You can definitely do this with JRPGs, but it takes a lot longer to get into this relaxing groove. But what if I were to tell you that I have the perfect game you can play to relax with, and you can even finish it within an hour? There's no long build up, it's just straight into gameplay after a very brief introduction just to let you know what's going on. A Short Hike is about a girl named Claire, who is waiting for a very important phone call. However, they're traveling and she can't manage to keep a decent phone connection. So her aunt gives her the idea to climb the top of this mountain that they're staying at the bottom of, to try and reach a better connection, and to take her mind off the call for a bit. Sitting around waiting for things to happen is never fun, so finding ways to keep yourself distracted until it's time always helps to keep your sanity. First off, the movement and controls of this game are absolutely beautiful and intuitive. There is no entry barrier for learning the movement like there can be for a lot of 3D platformers. It's a very simplistic moveset to help you get playing and exploring the game as fast as possible. A Short Hike is an open world exploration game, and the world is by no means huge, but it's filled with little secrets everywhere, making the exploration feel rewarding, and the game really gets its money out of every last inch of the island. It makes the world feel much larger than it actually is just by filling it up properly with things to do. I'm so tired of playing open world exploration games where it just feels like most of my time exploring is spent just walking from area to area with hardly anything to do besides look at the areas and maybe appreciate how they look. For a game to be gripping and enjoyable, there needs to be a lot of content to keep the player engaged, not a huge world. Trying to make a player explore a world filled with nothing but chests every 15 minutes will just make them bored. A Short Hike makes all this exploring incredibly meaningful and rewarding with one really simple but genius solution. In A Short Hike, you start off with one feather. This feather allows you to double jump, and after any jump you can glide through the air. Through exploring and finding secrets and just completing little side objectives, you can actually gain more and more feathers. This is amazing and it makes the exploring so worthwhile. The more feathers you have as well, the more you can sprint, and so you can move around the island much quicker. It's an absolute joy to slowly gain feathers and test how far you can climb up certain parts of the mountain with those. I spent a lot of time as well just trying to see if I could cheese parts of the mountain with less feathers than what felt like intended. Being able to give yourself fun little challenges like this comes from having such a unique and fun to scavenge world. It really digs the creativity out of you, and I love every bit of it. This game is partially a collectathon as well. You gather unique tools and items that can help you unlock more secrets and get different items. For example, early in the game you're able to trade with a little kid on the beach. He has just a regular shovel and is trying to use it to make a sandcastle, and if you exchange a toy shovel, both parties are happy, and now he can dig in the many X's scattered throughout the island, and he can easily work on his sandcastle. The game also gives you something to collect throughout the game. An early NPC makes a remark about how they need 15 seashells, but they can't tell you what for. These are put through the outskirts of the island mostly, and add a meaningful long-term goal to work on while collecting feathers and climbing. In total as well, there are 20 whole golden feathers you can acquire, and the game just gets more and more freeform as you collect. At a certain point it's not even a big deal at all to fall off the mountain. You can track back up so quickly if you have even half the feathers in the game. It makes this game such a relaxing and cozy experience. You're able to blissfully walk through this game because really, what do you have to worry about? There's no time limit, there's no danger, there's not even any complex puzzles. It's just a comforting experience that literally anyone can enjoy. It might feel boring to some people who long for more engaging action, but it might just be perfect for people like me looking for something to relax with and enjoy their night on. Even though there's also an awesome boat riding sequence with another character that feels like a fun little side quest whipping through the waters. I seriously can't stop talking about how easy it is to just boot up this game and play it all the way through. This means a lot to me as well because in recent years I feel as though I've been really struggling to devote time to single player games. I couldn't quite tell if single player games were just not that fun anymore, if I was experiencing some burnout, or what it was. It felt much more enjoyable and easy to just keep grinding and playing multiplayer games for a few hours every day. Getting wrapped in the thrill and grind of getting better at games is incredibly fun and truthfully my favorite part of games. But the beauty of video games is that you can play and enjoy whatever you want in whatever part of your life you're in. If you're feeling motivated and excited to grind, keep it up. By no means is this a bad thing at all to do. Hell, for all anyone knows, you could end up going pro in whatever you're doing, but at the same time everyone needs some rest one way or another. Grinding forever every day 24/7 can really take a toll on you, especially if you're working full time. This is where the complexity and deep variety of video games can really shine through. If you decide it's time for a change and you want to play something relaxing, you can just do it. Especially in recent years as we slowly push away from physical copies of games in favor of keeping everything on our desktop neatly in one place. Applications like Steam allow you to switch from game to game with such ease you don't even have to think about setup. Chill game I want to try out? Cool, I'll buy it with a few clicks, download, and then boom, directly there for you to play. You don't have to go to the store, you don't have to wait for it to ship and arrive. If you buy online, all you have to do is buy it and wait for the download to finish. Though I won't lie, some of the magic of popping a disc into a console is a bit lost, but it's a worthwhile trade in my opinion. Personally, I like to have physical copies of games I consider to be some of my favorites of all time, but if it's just a new game I'm trying out, I don't really care to have a physical copy. Anyways, let's talk a bit more about A Short Hike and its dialogue. This is where indie games live or die often in my eyes. I find a lot of indie games are often going for more of a quick and emotional goal with their runtime, but stagger themselves pretty bad on the dialogue and the ending comes out half-baked. It feels like oftentimes there would be a lot of emotional buzzwords trying to grab feelings out of the reader without any real depth. It feels fake and only scratches the surface layer. This almost always stems out of the poor dialogue that I find being way too quirky or trying to be way too deep that it contrasts off the game poorly and reflects a negative "I'm 14 and this is deep" type of energy. I'm so glad to say A Short Hike does this well. It's definitely not an overly emotional game, which helps, but the dialogue is the perfect middle ground where people talk with more of a current day feel but aren't pushed too far into the tropey territory. They have their lines and are pretty relatable actually, like the college student selling feathers at the bottom of the hill. They have a great human warmth to them. The human feel of the dialogue bounces off the relaxing feel of the game perfectly, just adding to the flow of the game. It feels like you're talking to actual people, not some random bot in something like Oblivion. It's not exactly like you're talking to someone on the street, however it feels more similar to the conversation you'd have online, which personally I like for a game like this. It has the feeling of an online conversation you might have with someone like a mutual, revolving around similar interests. You're not entirely comfortable with someone, but you can still have a quick conversation that feels genuine and skips the in-person awkwardness that can sometimes be there from not being the first one to open up. As you get higher and the game starts to reach its climax, you're presented with a small challenge. The challenge being snow and the colder heights of the mountain making your feathers not regenerate. You can only refill your feathers in little mini hot springs and campfires. It's a neat addition to add a little bit of a challenge to the platforming so you're not just spamming with the excessive amount of feathers you might have. But honestly, there's spots to refill everywhere, so it's not a big deal then even. Once you reach the top, Claire is finally able to get cell service and is able to talk to her mother. They have a bit of an emotional phone call, nothing overly emotional, but there's definitely some weight to it that you can feel that doesn't feel cheap or poorly placed at all. It's a soft emotional ending to your climb up. It's not overly emotional, but it still has weight, just like how the climb wasn't hard but it still took some effort. All in all, I thought this was a great conclusion to a fantastic game that I'll definitely be coming back to for a 100% playthrough at some point. A Short Hike reminds the player that games can still be a relaxing and comforting experience to wind down your stressful day with. It's always important to focus on yourself and enjoy the present as best as you can. Thanks for watching.